The next question is, my SMSF owns commercial property and we would like to provide rent concessions for one of our tenants. How should we document this? Is it just a variation to our lease agreement, or are there any other records we should keep?
Good question. So perhaps I'll give the unhelpful answer, it depends. And that's more on the basis of the nature of your tenant. So if you have an unrelated tenant, the important thing is, yes, you can give rent relief. Obviously, in the current environment, that's entirely commercial, and that rent relief should be on similar or other commercial terms to those that are out in the benchmark, that can be benchmarked out in industry. And the obvious benchmarks that are available for trustees to look at is the National Cabinet Mandatory Code of Conduct, or equivalent state codes as a guide. Now, if you've done that and you put it in place, and you do want to give your tenant, an unrelated party, a temporary variation to their lease agreement, the key thing is, of course, that variation must be clearly documented, the changes to that terms of that lease agreement, and that it is in response to COVID-19. So the link must be clearly drawn. The issue I understand with some lease agreements is that you can only, under the terms of that lease agreement, vary them in a particular way. So you must obviously make sure you comply with those terms in order that the variation be considered legally enforceable. So whilst for us at the ATO, what we really just need to see is evidence of a genuine negotiation in good faith and documentation contemporaneously of the changes to the lease agreement and the considerations of COVID-19, I think where you're dealing with a third-party tenant, it would be prudent, of course, to make sure that you do vary the lease formally, whether by way of a deed of variation or a formal renewal of the lease agreement, so that all parties clearly understand what has been agreed to and for what terms and period. And I think then also, because it will be a temporary variation, it's quite clear when the terms of that lease will be revisited and potentially extended or finished, and there is no lack of clarity between the parties that are dealing together. It also obviously ensures that the lease is legally enforceable should there be any disagreements later down the track. Now, obviously, in the case where an SMSF owns a property that is a commercial property that is being rented by a related party, maybe it's the member and the trustee are the same person, you may not need to go to those degrees of caution, and a simple minute or other contemporaneous document that evidences those considerations that I've just discussed would suffice. But yes, certainly in the case of third parties, I think it would be most prudent to ensure you have ensured that your lease agreement is legally enforceable.